Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. My name's Tom, and I'm very pleased to say I've been joined once again by my good mate, Sam. How are you getting on, mate?
I'm good, mate. Shame about my FanTeam side. Maybe I should just stayed off the pod altogether. I think that's what my brain would have wanted me to do, but my heart said return and face up to the dismal wild card that's been chosen since I was last on. So yeah, not great, mate. Not great. So it's the first time today I looked at it when we were talking about going through the teams earlier. So not quite as bad as I thought, but still pretty dismal. What about you? You're
FanTeam
smug, aren't you?
going
You're smug
pretty
because you're
pretty
doing all
well.
right.
Yeah, I haven't played my wild card. I'm 61st overall at the moment. Really happy with my team. I'm just trying to my tactic is just to build up as many transfers as I can up to Gameweek 12. So I've got another transfer in hand. Just sell all my City and Arsenal players, play my wild card in 13 and buy them all back. Treble up on both teams, I think.
Yeah, mate, you're in such a good position. Let's hope we can push you on to a really good finish.
Well, obviously you're saying you're not too happy with your position, but I think there's definitely ways to make up ground as we go forwards as well. So I wouldn't be too disheartened.
Well, look at it last season, when we started the pod, and I think I was potentially a bit higher than you, but we both had consistent rises. So you're absolutely right. There's plenty of time to turn things around and improve the matter.
Should we look at the damage first and get it out of the way?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Do I look at my team first or yours? I don't mind.
Should I just get mine out of the way? I think
Go
it'd be
for it,
nice to
mate.
get rid of the pain. So this, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this is a wild card side.
It's the one on the right of the screen, by the way. Sorry.
So this is the season long. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about like Pope. I mean, loads of people have got him, and there's been barely any clean sheets knocking around anywhere, is there? So it's not such a drama. Like, I'm happy with that. Back four: Saliba, Gahey, Strauch, and Justin. So I brought Justin in for. I'm not completely mad. I think I just brought him in for someone who was injured. I think it was Anderson a couple of weeks ago. As just a bench fodder, but with Mitrovic been injured and then ended up having to play Justin this week. Shock horror, absolutely no clean sheet. I mean, we all knew that, didn't we? So Stroud got the goal. Yeah, a bit disappointed in Palace. Like, you would have thought, the aim obviously was maybe a few more clean sheets, and it's early days yet, but conceded. And then no surprises, Saliba conceded against Liverpool. I sort of predicted a 2-2 sort of scorelines was fairly close. I knew there'd be goals from both sides, so no surprises there. Selected Son on wildcard, Zaha, Madison. Obviously had Salah as well already. So yeah, there's a couple of returns in there. Not pulling any trees down for sure, but was it Zaha? Was it an assist? Son an assist? Salah blank, Madison blank, and then Tony assist, I believe, and then obviously Haaland gets a captain's return. Like I was saying to you off air, Tom, this side pre-wild card would have had rises. I would have had Martinelli, Jesus from last week with the goal or whatever. Like, honestly, just I can't remember everyone exactly, but it was a much better team. So a little bit disheartened that I picked a wild card side. That wasn't very good, but it's my own fault. Son as well. In hindsight, obviously had his hat trick, and then he'd gone and scored a couple of goals in the international breaks. Thought Son's back, and he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't potentially been as explosive as we know he can be. And obviously, with all that money in that midfield, then it means I've got a fairly poor kind of defensive line. And obviously, Cancelo's not in there. He obviously got the goal and the clean sheet. So it's just a few things really that are a bit disappointing, because I think Cancelo was in my previous team as well. So as I said, I would have had a much better side had I left it. But this is the game. We take the highs and we take the lows.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, mate, I don't think it's the end of the world at all. I know you've had a tough week, but we've obviously got the Arsenal and City blanks in game week 12. You've only got two players from both of those teams, and a decent bench, so you could quite comfortably bench Saliba and Haaland and then just play them in 13. And by that time, you might have had enough transfers to say take out Son for Phil Foden and then just into Cancelo, maybe something like that. So I really don't think it's the end of the world, mate.
Strangely, at the moment, that was almost my plan. If I'm honest with you, something exactly like that. Although like Foden, it's like jumping on him at the right time, isn't it? Now is the right time. You don't know in a few weeks whether or not it will or won't be. But Man City just are on cruise control in the league, aren't they? So they seem a pretty safe bet.
Just a quick look at my team, just trying to see where I'm slightly different to you. Same goalkeeper. We both got Guehi. He was a bit disappointing against Leeds. Cancelo. I think this was the game that we all had him in our teams waiting for these kind of points. Came away with pretty much every kind of return that he could have done. Trippier, he's been Mr. Reliable for me, really. He's probably exceeded my expectations. Even when he's not getting clean sheets, he's picking up assists. So, yeah, content with him. Salah, I think I'm just going to hold him. Excuse me. But yeah, quite disappointing this week. I think Klopp hooked him off a little early as well because he was pretty disappointing. But he's just going to stay in my team because I think for game week 12, he's probably the best captain I have in my team. Maddison, disappointing week after his good score against Forest. Gibbs White, he came off my bench for Mitrovic. Very lucky. It's my story of the season, really. These sorts of lucky bench players coming in and decisions, etc., have worked out really well for me. Yeah, Gibbs White first on my bench and he gets an assist, so I can't complain at all about that. Martinelli and Bowen, we all know how they did. I was considering selling Bowen the week after I bought him because I just didn't think he was gonna score, but he's done really well. Tony, obviously you've got him as well, just a consistent point scoring player, penalty against Newcastle. And then just like everyone, I had Erling Haaland as my captain. So,
yeah, sorry, it was the penalty, wasn't it? I think I made a mistake earlier and said assist. Yeah, you're right. It was the spot kick, wasn't it? Of course.
And yeah, going forward, I don't really see the need to make any transfers for game week 12. I'm really happy with my team. Sorry for 11.
Week, to be fair, mate. You've smashed that week. That's a great week for sure.
I was on if you can believe it, before the Gibbs White 5-pointer, I was on a red arrow. I'd dropped by like 40 places because quite a lot of people in my zone have Foden by the looks of it. So yeah, really, really happy that Gibbs White came away with an assist.
Yeah, I was going to say there must have been some good scores, and yeah, just solidifying, why I slipped down the ranks so much. When you see your score and you're nearly on a red arrow, says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, well, like I said, I'm going to bank my transfers, spend them all game week 12 to get rid of Cancelo, Martinelli and Haaland and Saliba if I deem it necessary, and then buy them all back on my wild card in 13. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy with how I'm getting into the World Cup.
Mate, awesome. Yeah, you're well set.
Right. What I thought we'd do next, mate, is just have a look through, because game week 11 and game week 12 are so close to one another. I thought I'd pull both of them up and we can just go through the fixtures. Obviously, unlike the Sky game that we also make a podcast for, there's not a captain every day, but I still think it's worth going through the 2 weeks fixtures, just seeing players that we like the look of. So fixtures for game week 11 are, I'll just run through them all and then we can chat about them. We got Brentford, Brighton, Leicester Palace, Fulham, Bournemouth, Wolves and Forest, Spurs and Everton, Villa and Chelsea, Leeds and Arsenal, United and Newcastle, Southampton and West Ham, and then Liverpool, Man City. I think the first question I've got for you, mate, is who will be your captain for game week 11, sorry.
I think Son's obviously a good shout, maybe for Spurs versus Everton. But I think strangely it's just going to be probably Haaland. Obviously Liverpool looking really quite leaky. 2 more defensive injuries, so Matip and Trent. Although neither were playing particularly well. Disharmony within the team to some degree. Haaland on fire. It's not really one to overthink, is it? Am I thinking along the right lines there, do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, I'm a United fan, and I don't say this as a joke, but in the current state that they're in, I think Liverpool are genuinely a team to target, at least defensively. I wouldn't back anyone to really keep a clean sheet against them, but going forwards, I think pretty much most of the teams in the Prem could nick a goal against them at the moment.
As they are, mate. They've conceded 16. Out of the last 20 games, 16 of them, they've conceded the first goal. pretty heavy stat,
Yeah,
a bad heavy stat. So you're absolutely right. And I'm a Liverpool fan, but the fact I would never usually captain like a Haaland or whoever it is, a City won against Liverpool last season, the season before. As you said, this is Liverpool are one to target on the defensive front at the moment. Sadly,
and I think just thinking of a couple of other players that people might have that they might need to get rid of. Obviously, Trent. I imagine he's still quite popular in FanTeam. I don't have his ownership to hand because I don't have him in my own team.
no,
But if you were in a position where you had to get rid of Trent, what would you be thinking for a replacement?
well, you've already got, for me, it might be along those lines of it depends who you've got, doesn't it? Like for me, it would still be a Cancelo. Would I do it this week? If I could work a plan where I got Cancelo in after the blank, then I would save it. But if you couldn't, then obviously a Cancelo is well worth having on there. Also, if you Trippier-less, well, that's a word there, then he's worthwhile having in for sure. Do Arsenal go into a bit of a better run now?
Yeah, they do, mate. I'll quickly flash up the fixtures for people to see. But Arsenal's run after the blank is Southampton, Forest, Chelsea, and Wolves. So that's a pretty mean run for
Yeah,
Arsenal.
that would be an option. If I had Trent and I didn't have any glaring issues, I might just have either rolled it this week or do Cancelo.
Just seeing if there are any other real talking points there, to be honest. I think that's about it, really. I mean, yeah, my tactic, like I said, was to bank as many transfers as I can for the blank game week 12, which we'll go on to, and then play the wild card in 13 and go from there. So just looking at those game week 12 fixtures, Brighton Forest, Palace Wolves, Bournemouth Southampton, Brentford Chelsea, Liverpool West Ham, Newcastle Everton, United Spurs, Fulham Villa, and Leicester versus Leeds. From your perspective there, mate, who's your standout captain that week? Who would you be looking at giving the armband to, given that we can't captain Haaland?
I think Salah, mate. Don't you?
I do, yeah. I like Salah. I think it's Salah or Kane as the two.
Yeah, is Salah just stupid? He's been completely and utterly blanking religiously, hasn't he? It seems. Yeah, it seems like. Well, yeah, I think Kane's probably a better shout, if I'm honest with you. If you had him, I don't have him, so that's what I would say for sure.
What do you make of I'm just thinking, I really quite like that Leicester fixture against Leeds as well. I don't know, would you think Maddison is a bit of an outside chance?
He's been consistent, hasn't he? I know he blanked last game, but was it you that were saying no, he's been performing well and above what is
Yeah,
statistically.
he has been. Yeah.
And you're thinking, is that kind of overperforming coming to an end potentially? I still think he's a worthwhile a captain choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Kane for me probably there is number one. A Chelsea asset even. I think they're looking quite good under the radar. Have a sort of Sterling or something like that. Yeah, I know we all get drawn into that Salah trap, don't we? So Liverpool at home, and then he's blankety blank again, and you're like, why did I do it? So yeah, I think Chelsea kind of forward asset, Kane, Madison. What's your thoughts on Mitrovic?
Yeah, I don't mind that, to be fair. I've got him in my team because I think you kind of have to with his value, but I just have a gut feeling that his purple patch has come to an end and he might quieten down a little bit. I think the injury might just interrupt his form. Obviously, he couldn't really do much about the injury other than playing for Serbia when he was injured. I don't think that should have happened, but yeah, I just got a feeling his purple patch has died down, mate. I'll still have him in my team, no doubt, but yeah, just a bit sceptical as to whether he can keep it up now.
Yeah, I do think though that anyone who's thinking about like a punt, not a punt, but like a alternative captain that week, it's absolutely more than viable and probably the better choice than Salah. I shall probably wait for our poll and then see what kind of comes up from the back of that, if I'm honest with you. But I really wouldn't want to captain him, Salah, as my first choice, if I'm honest, unless something changes in between and they start looking better or whatever.
Yeah, Sam mentioned, I'll just point in the right direction. It's that direction. Sam mentioned the poll. If you follow us on Twitter at Golden Goal FF, we will put out. I think this week there isn't much need for a poll because most will be on Haaland. But for game week 12, the captaincy will be quite interesting. So I think we'll do create a straw poll with multiple options so people can have a vote on who they think the best captain is. And that should hopefully be useful to help you decide whether you want to be differential or not with your captaincy pick.
Definitely.
Next up, I just had a couple of stats courtesy of FPLReview, free to view stats just on teams' clean sheet data percentages for game week 11 and the percentage chances of goal scorers. So interestingly, top of the list this week is Spurs on both counts. So Spurs have the highest percentage chance for clean sheet this week. And Kane currently is the highest percentage chance anytime goal scorer.
That's why I think it's good when we put the poll out this week, because I think there's going to be, although I think Haaland's is a very extremely good and the best captaincy option. I think there'll be a few on the Spurs assets. I mean, Kane's been ticking along quite nicely, so I think that could be a bit closer maybe than we think, Tom.
I think, people are forgetting, well, not forgetting, but Kane is being overshadowed by Haaland, but himself, he's having a great season. I think Everton, I actually don't think Everton are too bad defensively, to be fair. But I think I see where the maths is coming from on this one. I think my gut says go for Haaland because Liverpool are just weak, and I don't think these algorithms that come up with percentages have quite caught up to how bad Liverpool have been recently. I think they've got some credit in the bank from previous seasons' performances, and that might be affecting the maths a little bit. I don't know what you think about that, mate.
Yeah, mate, I can't argue. Been really poor defensively, and also nullifying our most potent attacking asset in Salah as well. So it's kind of not the best of both worlds. He's just, I agree, mate. No more to be said on that matter.
I won't rub it in too much more. You mentioned you're not too happy with Son, but he's got a 37% chance of scoring this week, and Spurs have got a good chance of a clean sheet. So I think it's really, he's still a decent
It's just
pick.
a hold, isn't it?
Definitely.
It's just a hold. And the great thing with Son is he can do what he did against Leicester the other week. It can be 3 goals in 20 minutes. And again, another real good route for him is the equivalent of what happened at the weekend. He assists a lot of Kane's goals. So he's, overlook him at your peril sort of thing for sure.
Interestingly, I've just had a thought actually. You mentioned when we looked at the game week 12 fixtures, Chelsea got Brentford in game week 12. One player that has done all right for Chelsea certainly since Potter's been back is Aubameyang. He could be a good shout for captaincy in game week 12, just thinking about it. He's up there with the likes of Haaland and Kane and Mitrovic for game week 11 scoring percentages anyway.
Yeah, as I said, if there's a week for kind of an outside punt, it's probably this next week. And then the week after, if you're going to bring someone in, you probably want to have that in mind as well, especially if they're a good captaincy choice for game week 12, the blank for City.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's going to remain. I don't know if you saw the Brentford and Newcastle highlights, but Brentford were terrible defensively. Yeah. So, it could be worth a punt on Aubameyang for
That's
game week 12.
That's why earlier I picked out... That's what I said about a Chelsea asset, really. Is it Chelsea-Brentford, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is that right? Yeah. Because I think they're looking pretty solid. They're certainly looking better anyway. And Brentford didn't look great defensively, so it seems a sensible move.
I don't think there's too much more to talk about on that lot. Should we get into some Twitter questions?
Yeah, man.
We got a few. First of all, King Louis 76 is currently number 1 in the season-long game. So big congrats to you, mate. Hopefully you can keep it up and win yourself some good cash, but not too much because I want to win some cash too. And he's asking, who would you transfer in for the City and Arsenal assets in game week 12?
Do you want to answer that, mate? Because I think you were sort of you had a little bit of a plan around your wild card and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so the three players that I think I'll want to get rid of are Cancelo, Martinelli, and definitely Haaland, because those are the three most expensive. I've mentioned Aubameyang. It's between him and Kane as to who I bring in to replace Haaland. Kane traditionally does quite well against United, but I think I planted the seed in my head about Aubameyang. We'd obviously have no certainty as to whether he starts, so it'll be interesting to see. If he doesn't play at the weekend, for example, that would lead me to think that he'll play on Wednesday against Brentford. So an interesting one. I think I've got to weigh up whether I want Kane or Aubameyang. And then to replace Martinelli, I don't really know. Maybe Zaha against Wolves. They got a new manager, or could go Trossard against Forest. I think both of those fixtures on Tuesday are probably worth targeting. I quite like Anthony for.
I think that's a plum fixture, that Trossard.
Yeah, I do too.
Forest are looking awful defensively, and Brighton have looked pretty good by all accounts since Potter's left as well. So I think if you're looking for that sort of game week 12 punt, I think he's a really good option.
And then replacing Cancelo, I don't really know. It will probably be, I'm thinking maybe a Chelsea defender, maybe a Chilwell or a Cucurella, just because I think they've got obviously good attacking upside and they got a good chance for a clean sheet. I didn't actually pull up the game week 12 odds, but sorry, mate.
Cucurella's really nicely priced as well, and now with Fofana out, you're going to think, is he going to see a bit more regular game time? Obviously, if Chilwell goes far left, Cucurella then might slot in at part of the back three, which was the talk, wasn't it?
We've also got a Reece James injury as well, haven't we? So yeah, both Fofana and James are injured. So I think that opens up a pretty dead cert spot for Cucurella now, I've got to say.
Yeah. And that was my only ever concern before, was just minutes for Cucurella. So if that becomes apparent that he's going to play, then he's a great shout.
And what I would say is I don't have to do it because I've already got him. But if you don't already have Trippier, I think Trippier against Everton might just be better than a Chelsea asset as well. But I'm expecting Mr. Louis, if you're top, you probably already have Trippier. But yeah, if you don't, I think him v Everton is probably the best.
Yeah, I think you've given really valid options there, Tom, for all of that, and I would second a lot of that. I also think a Palace. Did you say a Palace defender?
I didn't say defender. No, I think that's a good shout. Yeah.
The upside isn't huge because it's just pretty much a clean sheet. I think Anderson has a little bit more of a higher expected goal involvement than Gahey, but if you've got you don't want to. If it's a cheap replacement for a punt, again, everyone's positions are different. If it's a weak punt or whatever, I don't see that at all as a negative either.
Anything else, mate?
No, I think that's bang on, mate.
Awesome. And a quick look at our last question. I'm so sorry, mate. Your name is in a different alphabet to what I'm used to reading, so I can't say your name. But thank you so much for the question. Maybe if you watch this, tell me in the comments how you would like to be referred, and we'll use that when you ask a question next. But essentially, he or she, I don't actually know, is asking, should they hold Mo Salah? What do you think? Would you hold Salah if you had him? Or do you have him? I can't remember.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Well, if you want him for captaincy, then definitely. If he's not in any captaincy plans, then I don't think there's any signs at the moment to suggest that he's indispensable.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that, mate. I think for me personally, the next 2 weeks I'm holding him because, one, he's not injured, and I think there are a couple of high-profile players that are injured, and two, he plays in Game Week 12, and I think those are two reasons to hang on to him. But post-Game Week 12, I think I'm pretty much going to captain Haaland every week. I don't see a week where, unless Haaland gets injured, and by that time I might be able to bring in Kane to replace him anyway, and he'd be a decent captain. But yeah, I just don't see any reason to captain Haaland beyond 13. So I think post-Game Week 12, I think it's a good time to sell Salah. And I do still think that Game Week 12 captaincy, Salah's going to be the most popular. I know we've mentioned Kane and all these other options, but my gut just says that most people will just go for Salah.
Yeah, it's just it's based off previous
Absolutely.
data, isn't it? What he can do. And there's no doubt this season, although we're not playing very well at the moment, that things will get better for Liverpool and they'll start to click and we'll see a better Salah. I
And
think a lot of people's thought processes that have him at the moment are he's a bit of a differential, and if he starts to go off, everyone's going to be clambering to get him back in. And I can see both sides of it, if I'm honest with you. But as I said, if you're not planning on captaining him in any time soon, and you're sorted that way, then I feel like you can that he's replaceable.
yeah, I just think with someone of the value of Salah as well, I can't remember if Haaland has overtaken him as the most expensive player in the game, but when you're spending that kind of money on a player, I think unless you're captaining them like 50% of the time, you're probably worth splitting the funds across different positions.
Yeah, definitely.
That concludes us, mate. Anything else that you wanted to raise or talk about or anything?
No, just be very happy to have a much better week coming up.
I think you will, mate. You've got some tidy players for the next couple of weeks. I think I wouldn't be too disheartened.
That's it, isn't it? With the wild card, when you pick, you do look in advance, and so although you may feel a bit frustrated for a week or two, you're hoping that it's for a longer period of time. So yeah, fingers crossed.
If Son scores a hat trick against Everton, which is it could happen, I think you'll be buzzing and right back in the game. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Totally agree, mate.
All right then, we'll leave it there. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, leave us a like rating and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be back next week with another FanTeam preview. Probably before Game Week 13, considering that Game Week 12 is going to be played right through next midweek. So until then, we'll see you later.
Cheers, folks. Nice one, mate. Well done for carrying over when Lucy needed.